So I bought this little guy on eBay. It said not working. Oftentimes when I get a locomotive that says not working, I'm able to just clean it up or fix it with parts I have. This one wasn't much of a bargain really, because the engine had melted down. The electric motor, you can see here, I'll move my light, actually melted the shell a little bit. So I'm going to fix this by, I had to buy a new motor for it, but also I'm going to paint it Penn Central. So obviously probably the shell damage won't be so objectionable once it's painted flat black. So I'm going to start, I cleaned it before, I took the time to clean it before. So all I have to do is swap out the motor. Here's my motor right here. So we'll go ahead and put that in for you. So once the shell is off, this is what you get. I don't know if you can see, but it's really fried. Unfortunately, I won't be able to save this motor. So I'm going to take this apart. One little part at a time. The gas tank comes out. Very easy. And next is these two screws. So you'll see as I work, I put my first parts far away, and then the other parts keep being closer and closer. The trucks go back in last. And then the pickup strips here, those can stay in place. If they fall out, they fall out. That's not the end of the world. You would gently push out these pins. The circuit board also, if it stays in place, that's okay. And if it falls out, that's okay too. And that's it. I'm down to my motor. So that, like I said, if this falls out, that's okay. And I'm going to remove the worm gears, and then finally I'll have the motor in my hands. So these, they're not even pressed in there. You deposit them very gently. You hardly need any oil on this. I've already done all that before. I lubricated and cleaned everything before. So this, unfortunately, is just junk, but I'm going to keep it anyways. There's springs and brushes that go in here that can be reused maybe. So we'll see over time. Set that aside. Then I do the exact same thing but the other way. So this may be a good tip for you. Every step of the way I check my job to make sure that there's nothing wrong, everything's working. I listen for any noise or interference, anything that's touching something else. So every time I add something, I check it again. So I've got my two worm gears in. Check for interference again. I'm going to put the other side of the frame. So I tightened the screws all the way. I'm going to check, I had to reduce my voltage because it runs so smooth. And I check for both polarity, both sides, forward and back, just to make sure that everything's working correctly. Runs very smooth. Now I'm going to add the trucks and the contact strips. The gas tank holds the contact strips together, so before you put everything back together, before you put on your gas tank, make sure that you take a minute to realign your contact strips. Sounds great. I put my light shield and I put my gas tank back on. Now I have to go test it on the track before I put on the shell. So let's test it out to make sure that it works. Looks pretty good to me. Very smooth runner. All that's left to do now is work on the shell. So I took my shell apart. Keep all your stuff organized. I put all my small parts in the box so that when I want to get back to it, I can find it. All that's left to do now is to remove the couplers to not be ready to paint. I used to strip my engines down, but I don't do it anymore. It was just too much work. So it came back from the paint shop, looks very good. The shiny paint actually accentuates the burnt melted area. So hopefully with the decals and the dull coat, it won't be as objectionable. I use micro scale decals. It's a joy to work with, really. Very easy to put on. And already the defects in the shell are a little bit less easy to see. So it came out great from the paint shop. I'm going to be running it most of the time with this guy right here, which is a factory paint. So I'm gonna have to do the safety rails on it, so the hump from the melted motor are not so objectionable anymore. And did my cab, looks great. So I bought some handrails from an eBay seller called So Much Stuff. So he happened to have those available. So I'm going to detach them very carefully and then I'll paint the safety rails on it. I won't sugarcoat it for you. Putting the handrails took a lot of patience. So I did it off camera. So now with the Penn Central paint scheme and the handrails on, the melted area is not so objectionable. What's that's left to do is put my couplers on and reassemble the drive system. So here's the final step. And now we're ready to run some trains. So I find that it matches pretty close with the factory unit. Hope you enjoyed this video. See you soon.